97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with 97.3 ESPN.com's Andrew DiCecco. Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.
You know, we recognize the ability of the roster that's put together right now. And I think we have the ability to do something really special with this group, but it's going to take a lot of hard work.
Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Here we go, Football at 4. It is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast and brought to you by PlaySugarHouse.com. Sign up now. They'll match your first deposit up to $250. Go to PlaySugarHouse.com and win real money with their sports books along with casino games from the comfort of your home. Must be 21 or older to play. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Today it's Andrew DiCecco at A DiCecco NFL. The Eagles lose, but we got a lot of questions, and they need answers. Andrew DiCecco tries to answer them right now on the Boardwalk Honda hotline as the Eagles fall to 1-3-1. Andrew, what's going on, pal?
Hey, doing well, Mike.
Oh, boy. All right, where do we start? All right, I want to start with this. On that last play, Doug has kind of avoided it, and there's been videos about it. How do you read the way that defense was called? Do you put blame at Schwartz? Do you say that Geary was out of position? It seems that this thing has been discussed 6 ways to Sunday, but nobody has a definitive answer. What's your take on the Claypool touchdown?
Yeah, Doug did what I expected him to do, and that was take up for his defensive coordinator. But Jim Schwartz, to me, deserves the full blame for that play. To have Nathan Gary, who is arguably the worst coverage linebacker in the NFL right now, in coverage with a guy who's been beating the team like a drum throughout the afternoon is unacceptable. You know, you want to look at Nathan Gary in coverage. Opposing teams have been 23 for 23 for 267 yards and 4 touchdowns against him. And which equated to 154.6 passer rating. To leave that guy isolated like that in the latter stages of the game is just, there's no excuse for it.
So what could have happened in that spot? I mean, Slay's off the field, Maddox is already out, you're shorthanded. What could the Eagles have done differently?
Well, they could have given him a little bit of help, a little bit more help over the top with Rodney McLeod. They really didn't have a ton of options, right? So you have Craig James in the game. You had Jalen Mills out there. Marcus Epps hasn't been setting the world on fire. He struggled mightily in that game. But pretty much any option that they could have put out there would have been better than Nathan Gary in that situation, given all things considered.
I'm not disagreeing with you at all, but when you talk about the lack of talent and the lack of alternatives, that's kind of the road I go down with Jim Schwartz. He definitely has blame and deserves to be blamed for this loss, and his footprint is on this. But this team is just not built properly, and I've seen Jim Schwartz succeed when he has talent, and I don't know if there's many defensive coordinators that would be able to do well with what he is given.
Yeah, this defense is really bad, Hunter. He can only work with what he has. He does have some personnel control as far as, deciding who he wants to have on his defensive core there, but he really doesn't have a whole lot of options to work with. So he's not able to do some of the things that you would like to see from him, especially in the later stages of the game, as far as drawing up pressure and being creative in what he can do with his coverage packages. He just can't do all that. And those were the results that you're going to get throughout the season, something like along those lines, where teams are going to take advantage of that, and they're going to go right over the middle of the Eagles' defense, the heart of the defense, because that's been where they've been most susceptible. So,
all right, another guy,
not great.
Another guy as a part of that is a guy that we all liked, I think, Nicole Roby-Coleman, 32 snaps yesterday. Seems that he's really struggling. In fact, I believe he got benched at some point yesterday. I feel like they've already given up on him. I know you liked Coleman. I think a lot of people like this signing. The Rams, they had to give up on him because they were so capped out. I think they would have liked to have brought him back. So why is Roby-Coleman struggling?
Well, one thing I will mention is since the Bengals game, they've done a good job of kind of splitting up the snaps between Nicole Roby-Coleman and Crevon LeBlanc. A lot of it has been matchup based, as far as you're getting some of your bigger slots against a guy like Crayvon LeBlanc and some of your smaller, quicker guys against Nickel Roby-Coleman. And I actually thought that Roby-Coleman had a better game overall than Crayvon LeBlanc did outside. I mean, obviously Crayvon had a couple of bigger plays there, but I thought that there were some more egregious errors as far as tackling and pursuit to the football, over pursuit, I should say. I thought he struggled in some of those areas. And like I said, he's Crayvon's someone that has a lot of energy and he plays with a lot of effort. But if you leave him out there long enough, teams are going to exploit him, and people will soon realize why he is a role player and not a starter.
Well, when you look around the league, you see Rasul Douglas, and he's playing well. Sidney Jones was a breakout player for the Jags. Is there a reason why when players leave here? Nelson Aguilar's another one. Like, they leave here, although he's on the offensive side of the ball. We'll stick with the defense. Is there something with this scheme that puts these cornerbacks in such a tough spot?
Well, I would say for Rasul Douglas's case, yes. The scheme did not fit his skill set. Where he would have thrived is as far as in a place like Carolina. The way that Jim Schwartz runs his defense, it doesn't really play well to a player of Rasul's skill set or Jalen Mills' skill set. But in Sidney Jones's case, it was something more like, look, you got to give the Eagles. You can't fault the Eagles for this. He spent the entire training camp injured. They've given him many chances. It just wasn't working out here. Sometimes a change of scenery is what a player needs in order to kind of revert back to the player that they once were in college. And he's healthy now. He's making plays. He's playing free. A lot of it has to do with the scheme that you're in and the positions that you're put in. And it's good to see those guys making plays. And Nelson Aguilar, Nelson's always been someone that he elevates his performance when his confidence is at his highest. And going from leaving Philadelphia, where it became a toxic environment for him, he had that one good season, but he really struggled overall with drops and, dropping the football and at inopportune times. And I think it was just time to turn the page, go somewhere else, be in a place that they work around his skill set, and he doesn't have to be the focal point. He's had to be the focal point over the past couple of seasons due to injury, and that's not really his role. But I mean, there's a lot of variables that go into it. So nothing frustrates me more than when I hear fans say it's because the Eagles don't know how to evaluate talent or et cetera. No, there's many variables that go into these things.
Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. Overall, when you look at this defense, it's all a good offensive performance. 29 points in the NFL, you should win that game. Not the best defensive performance. Why is the Eagles' defense struggling? And what is your overall opinion? Because I think I heard you say not a very good defense. They got Slay, that defensive front. There's a lot of money up there. Are they great at safety? Not really, but admirable. The linebackers we know. But overall, what is your overview of this defense?
Well, the way the defense is set up is if the Eagles aren't getting home with their front four, they're likely going to give up a big play because the linebackers can't hold their own on the second level, and the secondary outside of Darius Slay is not equipped to cover for an extended period of time on the back end. The second cornerback spot has been a void, even with Avonte Maddox there. Avonte Maddox is not a number 2 corner in the NFL. He's a slot corner that the Eagles miscalculated and put him outside. He struggled there. He lacks the length and the size to match up with a lot of the receivers that you really need to be able to handle as a number 2 corner. The safety position has been just a rotating door of guys. We haven't seen Will Parks yet, but Marcus Epps is not a guy that he went out there all the time. Kayvon Wallace only played 17 snaps on Sunday, which tells you that while they may like him and have plans for him in the future, they don't trust him enough to put him on the field right now in dire straits. So that tells you all you need to know about their safety situation. But the back end is just not NFL caliber right now, and that's what the biggest problem is if when they're not getting home, the quarterback can just sit back there and kind of pick his poison.
Obviously, Darius Slay is the farthest thing from the issue, but I want to get your thoughts on this. Big Ben was not afraid to go to his side. And normally when you talk about the top corners in the league, some of these quarterbacks, and I know Big Ben is at the top of the league, some of them kind of go away from that and maybe pick on other people, which they still did that. But there were many times where he looked right at Darius Slay and said, I'm going to win this matchup, and so is my receiver. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's something that a veteran quarterback like Big Ben, they've seen it all. They do a lot of studying. They may have seen something on tape that kind of sparked something in his mind to, draw something up to attack Darius Slay, a certain deficiency in his game or something like that. But the timing that Ben has with his receivers historically has always been so seamless, no matter who's out there, whether it's Antonio Holmes or Antonio Brown, on and on and on. It doesn't seem to matter. They just have the timing down to the point where it almost doesn't matter who's covering these guys. They find a way to scheme these guys open, and that makes the biggest difference.
All right, I want to go to the offensive side of the ball, get some thoughts here. What was your take on Wentz's game? 20 of 35. Overall, I thought he played good. Not great. I don't think he was the reason they lost the game. I think he missed some plays. Should we be okay with him playing good? What is your take on the game Wentz gave us yesterday?
Well, Carson certainly wasn't the reason for the loss, and I would say that from what I saw from him it was probably his best overall performance through 5 games. Granted, the bar is pretty low. Granted, from what we've seen so far, but to me, he kind of reminded me of a boxer who was trying to feel out his opponent in the beginning of the game. Roy was just taking what the defense was giving him. He was accurate. He looked comfortable in the pocket. And then in the second half, you saw him push the ball downfield and really open things up and turn it loose and find that comfortability with Travis Fulgham. And I really thought he threw his best pass of the day was that 37 yards to J.J. Arcega-Whiteside.
That defense, when you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, they stopped the run. Other than that 74-yard run by Miles Sanders, they stopped the run. So when I think about Carson Wentz in his game, I thought it was better than good. I'm not saying it was perfect, but I liked what I saw out of him, and I'm definitely optimistic because it seems each week it's getting better and better and more into the Carson that, we expect him to be. The fact that it was a one-dimensional offense and he was still able to execute on that type of defense, that's what leaves me the most optimistic.
Yeah, that's certainly encouraging and shows that he's trending in the right direction. Obviously, outside of that 74-yard touchdown run that Miles Sanders had, they really couldn't get anything going in the ground game. And it was encouraging to see him kind of establish a rapport with some of his receivers and use his legs to, move outside the pocket and deliver the football with accuracy and not fall away from throws. His mechanics looked a little bit more refined. Wasn't perfect by any means, but he was vastly improved from what we've grown accustomed to seeing in the early part of the season. And the offensive line, got to tip their hats to those guys. The offensive line, the talk all week was how they were going to struggle and crumble against the Steelers, the vaunted Steelers defensive line, but they really stood tall, all things considered. I thought Jordan Mailata held his own outside of that late sack from Bud Dupree. And I really thought that Jason Kelce, at one point, Jason Kelce was the last man standing, but he's really done a fantastic job this season, keeping everything together as the glue guy in the middle. And Jack Driscoll also really impressed me in his protection.
Let's go to what your take is on Ertz and what's going on there. I mean, Peterson suggested today that Wentz missed him a couple of times, but obviously something's not right there.
Yeah, one thing I won't do is speculate, but I'll just go off what I see, and what I see is Zach Ertz struggling to separate, whether his routes aren't as sharp as they have been, and to me, he looks like someone who's disinterested. He's not running the routes with the same urgency. He almost seems like someone who's going through the motions. Why that is, I couldn't tell you. But I don't believe that it's an injury or anything like injury related or anything like that. I don't know really why it is, but they haven't had that connection, Carson and Zach, has been so successful over the years. So you have to wonder what's going on there. Why is there this disconnect? Because he seems to have no problem finding guys like Travis Fulgham or Greg Ward and establishing rapport with those guys.
All right, yeah, you mentioned Fulgham. What is it about Fulgham? Let me ask you, what do they do in the situation, let's say next week, okay? Jeffrey is activated. Jackson is activated. We know Rieger is not going to be ready to play next week, but at some point you're going to have Jeffrey, Jackson, Rieger, Goddard. Where does Fulgham fit in on this team?
I've been asked this question a bunch over the past, since the game ended, really. But the fact of the matter is that the NFL is a results-based business. The coaching staff simply won't substitute production in order to appease veterans who are on the back nine of their careers and haven't been out there while other guys have been producing. Now it becomes more about developing, Rager, Fulgham, Hightower, Watkins, and Greg Ward, and trying to, the season may be lost right now, but, it may not be. And you can at least come out of this season with knowing what you have as far as your young talent, young group of pass catchers. I don't know where Arcega-Whiteside fits into that equation. He only played 8 snaps, and look at Quez Watkins. He played 5 in his NFL debut. But they do have some young guys there that they really need to give the reps to, and instead of kind of just trotting out the same veteran tandem that really haven't been available for the better part of the 2 seasons.
Fulgham is definitely the storyline with that day, but I want to get your thoughts on Hightower because there was that play at the end of the first half where he missed the touchdown. Mm-hmm. There was also that play where he should have ran out of bounds, and then there was Carson Wentz and him almost connected on a big bomb early. So it's like with Hightower, the plays are there, but what's missing?
I'm glad you mentioned Hightower because that's something I wanted to touch on. When he was drafted, he was lauded for his speed, and many thought that the Eagles landed a steal with getting Hightower in the 5th round. But, having seen him at the Shrine Bowl and studied a lot of his Boise State tape, I saw a player that, yes, you're right, he does find himself in position to catch the football. He gets open, he runs good routes, he can create separation down the field, but he struggles with drops and he struggles tracking the football. That's why he was available on day 3. And you saw that on Sunday when he was in position. He finds himself in position. That's not the problem. He can create separation, but it's becoming tracking the football. His head was turned around. He didn't know where the football was, and those are things that need to get cleaned up. And you have to wonder if he had a full offseason and and Aaron Moorhead was really able to kind of break that habit and get him on the right path, if he would be coming up with some more of those plays or whatever. But that's one of his main deficiencies, and that's something that's going to continue to happen until they break that habit.
A lot of stuff, from that game yesterday. You leave. The officiating was terrible. I mean, there was so many. The discipline, though, the penalties. Some of those penalties, the Fletcher Cox penalty, the Jackson penalty. I thought the penalty on Slay, the pass interference, was an awful call. So I guess with that question, I would lead into is this team, in your opinion, watching them, close, or is this just what they are? A bad team, a mediocre team, or are they, if they get healthy, a player here, tweak some things, are they close to turning the corner, or is this just who they are?
In my opinion, they're not close to turning the corner. As maybe on the offensive side of the football, a play here or a play there, I think that they could put up 27 points a week if Carson Wentz continues to trend in the right direction and establish that rapport with his receivers. He seems to play better with a lot of these guys that don't have an agenda. They don't have an ego. They go out there and they're hungry and they want to go out there and make plays. They love playing football and they want to play and they want to stay in the NFL. A lot of these guys are trying to prove that they want to stay in the NFL and kind of entrench themselves into a roster spot. So you see a lot of hungrier players wanting to make plays. I think if that continues to happen every week, I think the offense could, be a little bit more, formidable. But as far as the defensive side, this is what they have to work with. They're flawed on the 2nd and 3rd level. That's not really going to improve. I don't know how much better Will Parks makes the back end. He is lauded for his coverage, so he should help in some regard, but we don't know when he's going to come back. We haven't heard much of an update on him. We don't know exactly how he's going to be used. He'll be moved around all over formations. But there's just a lot of uncertainty there on the defensive side, and the Eagles, they're not equipped to win in shootouts.
Were you okay with Doug Peterson going for it for the 57-yarder, or would you rather him maybe run a different play on 3rd down and then go for it on 4th?
Yeah, I was okay with it going for the 57-yarder because you know that Jake Elliott has the leg for it. He was apparently booming the football in pregame, and I can understand maybe that the weather conditions, possibly with the rain and the unfamiliarity of that stadium and everything else. But I thought overall I thought that the prospects of him connecting on that 57-yarder were pretty good. But, I mean, the offense really was struggling has previously been struggling to move the football. So to not really have you could also make an argument for taking the case for trying to push the football down the field and make a play, probably go to Fulgham. They didn't really stop him much on Sunday in his 13 targets. So either way, I think that they had a chance to come away with some points there.
Football at 4, Andrew DiCecco, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Tomorrow, Jim Schwartz will talk, and we'll hear his reaction to what happened on that final play, and we'll talk to Andrew about that and plenty more. They have their hands full again this Sunday. It doesn't get any easier as Baltimore is in town. We'll have plenty more during Football at 4 with Andrew DiCecco tomorrow right here on the Sports Bash. Thanks, Andrew.
You bet, guys. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, man, and that is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast and brought to you by PlaySugarHouse.com. Sign up now. They'll match your first deposit up to $250.